What's on, where and when.
It's the Talk of Nelson.
Talk Nelson Radio.
Sport. The Mako Rugby Roundup.
Welcome to episode 12 of the Mako Rugby Roundup podcast, where we find out who the fanatics are when it comes to all things rugby in the top of the south. I'm Chris Butler, and my co-host, as usual, Mr. Rugby himself, Les Edwards. Nice to have you here, mate.
Yes, it's wonderful to be here on what is approaching a very good spring weekend.
Oh, it's a beautiful day out there. Everything's green and it's blue sky. It's been a very busy week for the boys. Before we start talking about what's on the show, our thoughts go out to the family of Willie Losey, who passed away, unfortunately. 55, Les. So
yeah, very young.
Shock.
We met him, of course, at Trafalgar Park on a couple of occasions when he called some games. Always a big, genial man, immaculately dressed, and just a real personality. So, yeah, commiserations to him and his family.
Geez, we've lost some giants of the sport, especially amongst the Pacific Island community lately. You know, it's real sad. But, yeah, our thoughts with the family. And, of course, we woke up this morning and Queen Elizabeth II no longer with us. So, hail to the new king.
Yeah, long live King Charles. But, yeah, Queen Elizabeth, what a legend. I read a stat. She reigned for 30% of America's history.
Oh, wow. How's that?
It's quite remarkable. Seriously good woman who served a long time, did it very, very graciously.
And their family, especially the boys, would get involved in Rugby World Cup and those kind of things. So they enjoyed their rugby, and the All Blacks have been there many times. So,
absolutely. Very, very sporting family. But yes, the young men.
Yeah.
William and Harry, and Princess Anne, they have their patronages of various rugby unions. So, yeah, a rugby mum.
Right, yes, that's right. That's right. All right, on today's show, we're going to be talking college rugby, also the latest Mako update. Our special guest is Nelson College First 15 Forwards and Set Piece coach, Mike Fraser, and also the amazing performance of the All Blacks. Where did that come from?
Well, it came from the previous 2 games ago.
Yeah, that's right. So we're going to analyse that a bit, and of course the upcoming Bledisloe Cup match. But first of all things First 15 rugby. It was the South Island final, and just couldn't quite get over that last hurdle.
Yeah, it was a very, very tough ask. You're playing weekend from a Crusaders final, then into the South Island final. John McGlashan had a bit of a rest because of our final in the Crusaders region got delayed due to weather. But look, John McGlashan College are a very big team, and it was principally a Year 13 side. So lots of big boys. I thought our team were terrific. Got off to a good start, had a try to open the scoring. But then, unfortunately, just a bit of a tough period in the middle of the game, but came storming back. Ended up losing by only 29 points to 26. Chris, that's close. That's a close game.
Yeah.
I watched it on the tally up in Palmerston North at a lovely venue. They thought we were nuts just screaming at the tally over a First 15 game. But so they're hosting. By the way, Palmerston North are hosting the top 4 final this weekend. So we just got there a week too early. A good game. But as I said, a Year 13 team against a lot of boys, Year 11s, Years 12 in our side. But what a fantastic season by Nelson College.
Yeah, that's right. And we're going to be talking to Mike Fraser about that season, and we've been really impressed with their performance. So we'll talk about that more. And good luck to John McGlashan College as they take on the North Island teams in the top 4. So we wish them all the best. Okay, Tasman Mako Men, and it's been Storm Week. What a big week, Les. 3 games in 10 days. So a lot of organisation. A good start to that with a good win over Manawatu.
Yeah, that victory was 36 points to 26 over Manawatu up in Palmerston North. We went to the game, thoroughly enjoyed it as a spectacle, also enjoyed the hospitality that the Turbo management put on for us. It was good. It was a funny game because we ended up leading 36-12 with 15 minutes to go, and then let them score 2 tries, which A, mucks around your for and against, and B, just makes that scoreline of 36-26 look closer than it should have been. I thought that we were great in scoring 5 tries, some very enterprising backline play. A good night, but not a great night.
Yeah, well, in their defence, Manawatu did make the highlights reel with one of their tries, so it was a good try. But, yeah, I thought we played well and we certainly dominated that game. But then we go to Wednesday night, and a nice night, but certainly chilly, that's for sure. But
yeah.
I thought a good turnout for a midweek game, and especially with the cold weather. And to be honest, Les, I didn't go into this game with high hopes against Wellington, but quite pleasantly surprised with our start.
Yeah, a start despite losing your 2 locks, your number 4 and number 5, off the park within 7 minutes of the game. I mean, that's just a continuation of a bad run of forward injuries that we've had this year. So, first of all, Moni Nakuru banged his head, failed his HIA. Then Quinton Strange, our captain, hurt his hamstrings. So, it was a very good start given that shock to the system, if you like. 25 minutes, we had all the ball, all the possession. Just failed to put the try on that would have kept the momentum going, I think.
Yeah, that's what we were having a chat in the stands, and we were looking at all the territory that we had, and then we looked at the score and it was still only 3-0, and we were thinking, and then all of a sudden, as the game went on, Wellington started to hit their straps. But we bounced back a couple of times. But and then the second half for me was all of a sudden they started bringing on 1 or 2 big guns. TJ Perenara came on, and then we had Scudder playing fullback for Wellington.
Yeah, Nehi Milner Scudder at fullback, Julian Savia at second 5'8", and TJ Perenara at halfback.
I didn't even see Savia. Yeah, right, amazing.
It is amazing. 3 older legends of our game. Certainly, I don't think our young backs ever feared them. No. Because young people don't know any different. They don't really know how great they were. But it was an interesting game. As you say, and I commented to the person I was with, 25 points, you're only 3-0 up. If Wellington get into our territory, they'll probably score a try off their first sniff, And that's indeed what happened, some enterprising play. Unfortunately for Tasman, the try should have been disallowed by the TMO. Clearly not a try. The winger had scored. Connor Garden-Basham had scored with his hand in touch before he forced the ball. So, just an error, a human error there that didn't help the cause. But and they scored another one off of what I thought was a forward pass too, and disallowed one of ours off what was called a forward pass. So it was just one of those days. But look, this team never gave up, Chris.
No, we did, and the thing is that we did come back towards the end, scored a try, but we just left it too late. We didn't get enough points with that territory that we had, and I felt that in the second half, Wellington, they did bring on their big guns, and they started to dominate, I think, a bit more then. I think the thing is, it's interesting. People are mentioning, we're not doing well this year, but I guess in context, I keep saying to people is that, everything goes in cycles, and we've got 7 All Blacks out of the fray. We've got quite a few injuries, and at some point, the young blood's got to come through. And I think that sometimes, that's just the cycle of evolution, is that by circumstances, our young guys are getting a lot of experience now. And I honestly think, it might not be our year, but at some point you've got to restart the refresh button, and maybe this is it,
Yeah, I think so. I believe a team that's without its 4 contracted locks is going to do it tough.
Yeah.
So Pari Parkinson, Antonio Chauffoon out for the season. Quinn Strange and Moni Nakuru lost out of that game. The starting locks this weekend's going to be Tiahi Waru, Thurika Davida and Max Hicks. Basically our front row, who were enormous, I think, against Taranaki. They've got basically 5 Lucies packing behind them.
Yeah,
so
right, yeah.
it is a tough run. But yes, all of these young kids getting lots of experience.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with the culture, and there's nothing wrong with the grit and work rate that the players are putting in.
Yeah.
So, do not fear this Mako team will bounce back and be challenging for a title next year.
Well, we've got another big one on Sunday at 2 o'clock against Taranaki, and weather looking good, Les, is that right? Forecast
absolutely.
Is good?
Yeah, it was looking horrible at the earliest forecast this week, but no, clearing up lovely. Both Saturday and Sunday. So, buy your tickets online, you save on gate day prices. And again, what we will do is we're going to donate $3 of every ticket sold to the Nelson Tasman Mayoral Relief Fund, helping those families badly affected by the storms of now 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So that's important. Also, you can text $3 if you can't make it to the game. You can text STORM to 3493 to donate $3. So
Great.
If we all put in a little bit,
Yeah.
it's going to help, and it'll be a great game. I think we're I've seen their lineup. I've seen our lineup. I think they're fairly evenly matched for what is I reckon our best rivalry. I love a Mako v Taranaki match.
It's always been a big battle in the past. And where, Taranaki have been through kind of that cycle. They've had to rebuild. They're at the top of their game, and then they've had a few years having to rebuild. And, but now they're starting to hit their straps, aren't they?
Yeah, well, last year they went through undefeated and but couldn't challenge for the premiership position. Right. So that through their agitation, the rules have been changed now where any of the 14 teams can win the competition, but they're not having as good a season as they had last year, which is why I say that we're evenly matched. Yeah. But a Mako Bulls game is always well worth watching. Absolutely. So get along.
You're with the Mako Rugby Roundup, and it's our great pleasure to welcome to the show Mike Fraser. And Mike is the forwards and set piece coach for the Nelson College First 15. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me on the show.
Mate, we've been very impressed with the performance of this very young First 15 this year. So what is your role and how long have you been involved?
Look, when you talk about it being a young team, when you consider we lost 20 players from last year, only 5 back from last year's group, so 2022 was a rebuild year for us. Look, I've been with the Nelson College First 15 for the last 4 years, and, as far as forward coach goes, we also help out in other areas as well, so it's not just really refined to doing that.
Yeah, sure. Look, we've been in awe of the results, certainly with head coach Jono Phillips and what he's achieved. So what do you think sets him apart when it comes to coaching the young men?
I think that's a really good question. I met Jono, I went to the Hurricanes, I think it was 2011, and spent some time there. Jono actually looked after me, that's where I met him, and I was really impressed with his willingness to share information and actually, really made you feel welcome going there. Jono moved to Nelson, and I got linked up with him again, and he actually became my coaching mentor, so I feel that I've had quite a rugby connection with him, and we've also coached together. But so when I look at Jono, I think probably his whole professional approach and everything he does, whether it's for identifying the players or skill development, how we play the game, analysing, reviewing, previewing, it's just this whole professional approach. And I think he's got a really good idea what the finished product looks like and how to get there. But when we look at his experience, where he spent in excess of 7 years with the Scotland international team, he was coached 8 years or so with the Hurricanes, and he's had other professional roles as well. Like, to have that much experience sitting in a place like Nelson here, involved with the First 15 rugby team, is probably pretty outstanding in my view. So some of the things what I've seen with him is he's got a real passion to grow the players, and he wants them to be the best that they can be. It's just not playing rugby, it's about what next. The college is linked up with these sponsors and to help these boys get careers outside of the rugby. He's very demanding as a coach, so he's really, really striving for excellence. He drives the standards really hard, and in Jono's world, we have to keep getting better. We've got to keep growing, and it's just not the players, the trainers, the managers, and the coaches. It's the whole team. When we look at the season, and we've scored over 100 tries this season, it's been really free-flowing rugby. And again, that comes down to the style that Jono's put in place, and that follows up the style of rugby, the structures, and even the game analysis he does, looking for the opportunities, where the space is. So I think that what he's doing there is linked into the success of that there. And I think it's really amazing in this environment at Nelson College just how quickly some of these players actually improve. He also drives what they call a Nelson College way, and that's about above the line, no blame and excuses. And he actually, the group actually has a lot of input into what those expectations are, and Jono also has a good relationship with the leadership group who actually drive that. And it probably doesn't pay to be a person that falls below the line, because the group usually dishes out the punishment. I think as far as our team goes, is that's really set a really professional tone inside that environment. And Jono really drives that as well. Like, he really drives it hard to the point where, if you get players that didn't turn up to training, something like that, he would sit them on the sideline because that's what he believes. So I think that's really important. I think some of the other things that set him outside is actually the connection he has with the Mako setup, the coaches. The Nelson College have a really great old boys network, some great parents, some outstanding sponsors, really great sponsors, in fact, and even the community, which in this group here, that the feeling of being connected to the community is important, and even just general rugby people. So I suppose to cap it off about, Johnny's a person that actually cares about the people in his group, and he really greatly cares about the game of rugby, where it's at and where it's going to.
Mike, I get the impression he communicates very calmly. You talk about his passion and his standards, but he does it in a really calm manner. And I think, does that resonate well with the players who are in fact just young?
Yeah, very, very much so. And he'll break it down so they can understand it. He'll use video analysis. Clarity is really important in that group there, because he wants to know that when we go into the game, they've got great clarity. This is a really big part of why this team's been really successful over the last 4 years, in my view.
Yeah. Now, you talk about that success. Obviously, 3 Crusaders titles in 4 years. I know you've won a couple of quads. Do you want to talk us through the achievements that you've had in the 4 years of being involved?
Yeah, look, when you reflect on it, when I first went into this to think about winning a Crusader competition, I never believed we would do that. But on reflection now, when we've, particularly this year, we created some history and won back-to-back titles in that Miles Toyota Crusader competition. And I think the final was a great day, like at Sports Park, and probably people haven't been to see schoolboy rugby before with a haka, the free-flowing rugby, and then the boys singing at the end of it. So that really capped off a great competition for us. When we look at the quad tournament, this year was the 96th year it's been run, and I understand it's one of the oldest rugby tournaments in New Zealand. When you look at, it's got Wellington College, Christ College, Whanganui Collegiate, and Nelson College. And it's a fantastic tournament for these young guys, and to win that 4 years in a row, we were pretty stoked about that.
You would be. That's an amazing achievement. Seriously.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that a first in the history of Nelson College?
Yeah, definitely. We created some history there to get that many wins in a row. Even in the last 4 years, with that South Island final, where we won that in 2019 and 2021. So that's obviously play between the winners of the Crusader School region and the Highlanders region. And unfortunately, this year that we weren't good enough to get the victory this year. But, I think, John McLashan, they deserve to win that, and good luck to them in the top 4. And as we found out when we went to the top 4, it's a different beast up north.
They're bigger men, aren't they?
Yeah. So just on a lighter note, when we look at that success, there's a lot of rests around the front field getting redone. From my point of view, being a forwards coach, and having a really muddy home track and 21-0 sprigs, I think we're going to lose a home advantage when we're doing the field.
So the driver of the 5, you're not 100% sure.
No, I reckon that they should have probably left the field the way it is.
That is a lighter note. Hey, Mike, with so many year 11s and year 12s in this team, as you said, right, you only had 5 returning players. This augurs very, very well for next year, doesn't it?
Look, it does, but it's really probably in this group here we never get in front of ourselves because you don't know what's going to happen. But you're right, and I think that probably for this group going forward next year, I think you can expect a group of young men. They're going to be well prepared, and they're going to go on a pretty exciting rugby journey. And I'm sure they'll be determined to better what we've achieved in 2022 on a new field.
Yeah, that'll be great. Hey, just to finish up, Mike, you're the stepfather of Liam Squire, and we're just wondering if you could tell us what one of our Mako legends is up to these days.
Liam, he's actually working as a motorbike mechanic at the moment. So he's taken a whole different track in his life. Outside of rugby, he's bought himself a stock car. So. You can expect him on the stock car track shortly, I suppose, and it's going to be interesting to see how he goes there. He's pretty excited about that, so he's doing really well, thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. We love that, man. Our All Black and Mako legend, Mike. That's just wonderful chatting with you. Thank you for coming on the show. I know you're a busy man with your logging business, but great to get an insight into the college program, and I think the fact that these boys respond so well to yourself and the other coaches and to Jono is a big feather in your cap.
Cheers, thank you for that. Appreciate the comments.
Thanks very much, Mike. Thanks for joining us. That's Mike Fraser, and that's the Nelson College forwards and set piece coach. So, yeah, it sounds like quite a professional setup, doesn't it? So, that background that Jono Phillips has set up with his experience with Scotland and previous coaching experience, he's brought all those skills into that first 15 setup, and sounds like it's a well set up machine.
Yeah, and clearly, if you've got a structure and a system and a process in place that is easily transferable year by year, and it's one that the young men respond to, then that's just magnificent. So I do sense a genuine affection underneath that passion to win. I do sense that Jono and Mike have a real passion for, real affection for the young men that they coach, and want them to be better people as well as better rugby players.
Yeah, good stuff. So that's our Mako Rugby Roundup guest, Mike Fraser, the Nelson College forwards and set piece coach. You're with the Mako Rugby Roundup, and it's time to talk All Black Rugby. And where did that come from, Les? I mean, what went on there?
Well, a wet night.
Yes.
A kick-off by the All Blacks and an early drop ball by Argentina. Remember that? And all of a sudden, instead of conceding tries, which we've done in how many tests this year, early, we get the early front foot ball, we get the dominance, we get the first try, and their errors just continued to mount, and our skill level continued to climb to the point where you end up with a scoreline of 53-3 against Argentina. That is a winner out of the box, isn't it? Yeah. So lots and lots to love about it. Somehow, after all we've talked about, the ups and downs, the wins, losses, the All Blacks are top of the table in the Rugby Championship.
And give Foster his credit. He said, we've still got a Rugby Championship to win. They've now got a chance of winning the thing, which is amazing. So I suppose the things for me were, as you pointed out, there was that start, but also the fact that our prop forwards did their job again. They got front foot forward. Yeah, we were good at the breakdown where we supported the player. What really frustrates me, it's not always possible, but that if someone drives it forward, you've got to have support behind it. If that's too slow, I thought Smith was sharper at the breakdown to pass the ball out. I thought he did that quicker than previously, and that's the thing I love about Christie when he comes on. It's just done it at quick pace. And then that gave us the opportunities to get the back line going. Moanga had maybe a little bit more time, not much. They did put pressure on him. But then also our kicking game was full of variety. So you didn't know whether we were going to pass it for touch, or just do those quick kicks through. So I thought that was well thought out, and it just all came together. One more point is that Jason Ryan pointed out, he said the first test was probably his fault in the forwards, because he didn't take into consideration, with Kidwell being their defence coach, rugby league style, trying to hold the ball up, and our forwards going too high. So this time they concentrated on going in low so that they couldn't do that, and then putting the ball at the ground. So that was something they worked on, and that definitely worked.
Yeah, the forwards were magnificent, and best game from Sam Cane in a long, long time.
Yeah.
And it really helps when your skipper is on fire. They still weren't afraid, though, to let him have a break at the 15 minutes to go mark.
Yeah, great.
And brought on Papali'i. Look, the other piece that I really liked, and I don't know if it can be replicated in every test, but with David Havili playing at second 5'8", and not centre per se in the way you play the position, he provided that extra kicking variation and the uncertainty in terms of who was going to offload the ball that made it difficult for Argentina. So, many times David Havili came in as the first receiver. He set up a couple of tries with some very deft short passes.
He did.
He put in some really lovely kicks, and his combination with Rico Ione was a joy to watch, actually. Rico Ione, too, had one of his best games.
Yes,
so,
he did.
Yeah, there's lots to love about that performance, but, we'll still keep our powder dry.
And I wonder whether, now that they've had a couple of training sessions with Joe Schmidt on the park, whether just some of those tweaks are now coming into play. Next up, we've got the Bledisloe Cup Thursday. Don't know why we're doing it on a Thursday, Les. You could explain that to me. 9:45.
Yeah, so they've decided that because these games are in competition with the AFL and the NRL semi-finals and playoffs,
yes, of course.
that they could perhaps attract a bigger crowd by not playing on the weekend.
Absolutely.
So they've scheduled for Thursday 7:45 their time, 9:45 our time, and already I hear that the sales are through the roof.
Oh,
so
great.
Changing your thinking about how people consume rugby, whether it's what time you play it or what time you want to watch it, it's interesting that you think outside the box like that, and it could pay off.
Well, of course, I forgot that September's final football in Australia is huge, NRL or AFL, so that's good thinking. No Adi Sevilla, no Shannon Frizzell. A chance for Luke Jacobson.
Yeah, I think they'll give him a run.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, I could see that he'll get a run either at 6 or off the bench. Papali'i will get a run either at 6 or off the bench. It'll be really good to see this team. But, with the back row of Kane, Jacobson, Papali'i, they're big and mobile.
So who's going to be number 8?
That's I think I'd like to see Hoskins Sotutu get a run.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking if you've got either Jacobson or Papali'i at 6, Kane at 7, and Hoskins Sotutu at 8.
Yeah.
But they could change that up. Seriously, they could give any one of those 4 any run in any position.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll wait with bated breath because the Wallaby is a little bit injured at the moment, and they're a good side. We don't want to underestimate them, that's for sure, because they didn't fire against South Africa, but they are a good side, and I think a better side than we've seen for years, so it's going to be a big game.
Well, the Bledisloe Cup is the second most important trophy to this team, so
right.
They'll be going all out for 2 wins to make sure that cup doesn't step on Australian shores for the next 22 years. They've had it for 22 years. Can you believe that?
They'll be up for it. That's right.
Yeah,
they've already smashed us in the cricket, so they'll be up for the Bledisloe Cup. All right. Thank you, Les, once again, mate. And enjoy Sunday, preparations for Sunday. I think it's going to be a big game with the weather, a good crowd. So it's going to be an enjoyable occasion, and we look forward to that game and speaking to you next week. So that's it for another edition of the Mako Rugby Roundup. My thanks to Mike Fraser and, of course, the mighty Les Edwards. You can hear this podcast on talknelson.co.nz and on our Facebook page and on Fresh FM, 9 o'clock on Friday nights. And we'll speak to you again next week on the Mako Rugby Roundup. Have a great weekend.
The Mako Rugby Roundup. It's the talk of Nelson.
Talk Nelson Radio.